All right, and we're back here on Couch Coach Live once again here Wednesday night here under the lights here at CouchCoachLive.com. What's going on, Mal?
Chilling, man. Chilling. Disappointed. One of my picks didn't make it. You know.
Yeah, I mean it happens, Yeah, it's funny to think. I Who would have thought when we were here last Tuesday that one of the series would be over, and
Right.
one is damn near over. So yeah, it's been a very interesting Eastern and Western Conference Finals in the NBA, which we'll discuss on tonight's show. But yeah, man, yeah, it's been it was the Eastern Conference definitely was a uh, interesting, it's just sweet. And also, Minnesota was on the verge of being swept last night, but they took care of business. So, yeah, man, we definitely got a great show lined up for you tonight. As we mentioned earlier, we'll recap Minnesota's series saving win against the Dallas Mavericks last night. The Boston Celtics advancing to the NBA Finals. A very monumental day in college athletics transpired last week as college teams will be allowed to play players. We'll definitely dive into that as well. We'll also reflect on the life of the legend Bill Walton and round it out with our game ball night final thoughts. So, we'll keep that intro and we'll be right back here on Couch Coach Live. Yes, and we like that. Always, once again, huge shout out to Big Kirko, the Atlanta Falcons quarterback. He'll be facing him on September the 8th. We're about almost a little. We're almost at the 100 day mark as far as Sunday of the National Football League. I think we just crossed the 100 days yesterday for the matchups on September the 5th. So we are a little bit over 100 days between that matchup when your Steelers face Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, and
Yep.
it'll
Yep.
be here before you know it. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to the
Oh, that's
fall and
great.
all the trappings that is a fall. So definitely looking forward to the football season. So, but tonight we it's gonna be strictly hoops, pretty much for the
Yeah.
most part. Hoops and a little bit of football. I will kind of talk a little college football in a sense. So first off, we have to talk about last night's uh, Minnesota Timberwolves win over the Dallas Mavericks. It was a 105-100 win for the Timberwolves. Now the series at 3-1 as the Timberwolves head back to Minnesota for Game 5 tomorrow night. Carl Anthony Towns, 25 points, resurgence in the fourth quarter. Ant Man, 29 points. And a surprising stat that the Wolves are 3-0 in this postseason in elimination game. So, what's your thoughts on last night's Minnesota Timberwolves series-saving win?
It's hard for me. I'm happy that they won. I think the Timberwolves to me would have a good chance to I win the championship. But it's so hard, man. Like when you, especially since we do this show, we get looking at the stats. Like I wouldn't have thought they would have won last night. Now Niles Reed had what uh like 5 points or something like that, and he only paid like I think 14 or he didn't even play that much. You know what I mean? And seeing
Mhm.
Cat fouled out. Some people said today they felt like Cat really was trying to foul out anyway. But we don't know that. But he started hitting his shots. But then like even just how they play, they they could be so much better. So I went back to game two against the Nuggets to see how they work, and it was almost the same. Like it was like Cat and 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 um and Ant was aggressive, and everybody else like played a role. You know what I mean? Like I was discussing
Yeah.
today, I don't understand why they don't just have somebody on Luca and just focus on playing defense against Luca. You know what I mean? Regardless, that's just his assignment. You don't really see that. But this was my take on it. Like Kyrie, like Luca's the only one that made over 20 points. I think his name is Kleber, the center.
For Dallas.
Yeah, for Dallas, for the Mavericks. He played 13 minutes, one rebound, one assist, 2 points. But he's just coming back. I think he was hurt. And I just hope. I wonder. A lot of people say that Dallas looks tired, but I wonder if there's a good chance if this is a turning. It's a long shot, but when you got like I said, Luca got 28, Kyrie Irving got 16, Gafford got 12, um, PJ Washington got 10, and Hardy got 13. And I just feel like to win, both of your stars got to get over 20 points. You know what I'm saying? Um, that's really my take. It's just like to me, the Timberwolves could be doing so much better, and it's like offensively they're not using their weapons as much. Like I don't understand why they don't with the 2 7-footers on the. I don't understand why they don't do double screens. More, it's like I don't know why Carl Anthony Towns seem like he can't dunk or something. Like he every time he goes to the basket, unless he by himself, he gets blocked. Um, I seen Ant Man dribble in and he threw the ball all the way across the court, um, but the dude missed the three, and I was like, I don't understand why he just didn't come in and just throw it in the middle and give it to Cat. It's just those things that I'm seeing, but um, I don't know, man. Like I don't know if they just hold a little bit back, maybe not having Lively out there, maybe he's a bigger um, weapon than we think they are. Think he is. I don't understand why they don't foul more because Luka don't do well for foul shooting, but it looks like, man, clearly, um, that the Mavs got this. You know what I mean? Unless they gonna
Yeah.
break down. Be honest with you, over the years when Luka's been there, it seemed like they have an opportunity to move forward, and something happens where we talked about that, the focus. You know what I mean? And not taking it as serious, or he's not coming off like he's taking it as serious as it should be. And I hope they don't mess around and lose this series.
Yeah, and I think even this is what and I know I talked about in the preview. Essentially, like
Mhm.
kind of one of the keys for Minnesota to win is you have to have Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards to step up. I mean, now
Right,
when we think about the playoffs, just in general,
right,
your main guys have to step up, and you look at
right,
the difference between Cat and Ant. I think what 25-29, and then Kyrie and Luca 16-28. You look at that's one kind of key factors, and I know one thing too. I think they tighten up a lot on defense as well. I think
right,
even like kind of having Rudy Gobert kind of in the sense kind of guarding guys like Derek Jones at certain points of the game, and also Kyrie at some points in that
right,
game, kind of set the tone for this game defensively for them.
right,
Um, I look at this from the stand, and you had a great shoot, and and I was saying like as far as you look at Karl Anthony Towns, who was horrible prior to game four. I think he was what 3 for 23 at once, and he was struggling. He was struggling offensively in
mm-hmm.
these last couple of games, but then he came alive in that fourth quarter. I mean, in the game four and in the fourth quarter of this game. And then you look at another guy. I think when you look at it, who has struggled, PJ Washington. He's the one who's really struggled in this series as far as shooting wise. So it's kind of one of those things where I think Minnesota has a great chance. I think the biggest thing is if they can win tomorrow night at home. Then if they go to Dallas, was that Saturday? That's Saturday night. The pressure is mounting for Dallas because that's a must win game for Dallas. Like it's to a point where Saturday will be their biggest game in 13 years. And will they live up to that pressure? So that's one of those things where I think if Minnesota can make this series, take the series back to Dallas, they playing with house money because they can at least say, "Hey, we have won in this building, in this series." So, yeah, I definitely think they will. They got a legitimate shot. I don't necessarily think this is going to be over. I think this could be a situation where, I mean, we could be sitting here potentially having a game 7 on Monday potentially. It has that making of it potentially, and so who knows what can happen, and and that's one thing too where it's literally a game by game process. But I think as Minnesota collect a win, especially tomorrow night, the road gets a little bit easier because all the pressure then will mount on to Dallas because they had that 3-0 lead, and now you essentially are playing with house money. So, I mean, it's extremely possible, but we shall see. And I'm hoping Rudy is looking at the inside the NBA clips these last 4 games and how
me too, man.
They've been dogging them and showing them, hey, I'm legit. So and then I think Karl Anthony Towns, I think he took I don't know something about that when they talked about him in Game 3, how he said he tried to shoot 1,500 shots a game. I mean 1,500 a day, and they just laughed and joked and all that. I think shoot he shot the ball out last night.
It's weird to have this young man trying to push everybody. What'd you say?
Yes, I was saying Monday night, but it was Tuesday night. That's
right. But it's just weird to see like Ant is out there. It should be Conley pushing people. Conley should be the leader of this team because you could tell Cat got some pride. Like, I mean, it's I don't know him, but he just seemed like he got some motivational issues. Like they were saying something, and then Ant was like, "Man, I'm gonna beat him up in the bus." He was like, "Oh, that ain't gonna happen." I'm like, "Young, you know what he's saying, because it ain't gonna." They making fun of y'all. They giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's young, and they want him to be the face of the league, even if he messing up. That's who they want. You know what I mean? And I'm just, it's just ridiculous. I think they way better than they are. You can clearly see there is some personal stuff. I said before, we saw it last year. There is some, and I think it's because they may not like how people like if Anderson, like Slow-Mo seemed like he's one of those ones trying to tell people where to go and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? I think he could play 1 through 5. You know what I mean? And they may not like the way he's talking. I don't know, but you could just sense. And I'm just shocked that they won without even McDaniels. I think McDaniels got he got like 10 points or something like that. Like he didn't even score much, or him or not. And that's who Reed and him, Niles Reed and him been the ones consistently doing well. So that should be a motivation though, coach, that they should look at that. Like these guys, step back and y'all stepped up. And if you look at like that game 2 against Denver, McDaniels focused more on defense and Niles Reed hit the shots when he need to, but it was more just defense, and Cat got 27 and Ant got 27 points. You know what I mean? But I didn't know how you were going to say. I thought you were going to say, "Oh, they was just tired." I see you say, "Well, coach may say that," but you saying the same things, man. Like, man, if you give them another win,
and the thing about it is, all these games have been close, so it's not like like you look at. I think it was a game 2 where Anthony Edwards threw it to Niles Reed and he missed it, and he was automatic in that game. I think he had like 23 in that game. So it's just one of those things where, yes, and I understand, like, and even I understand, like, even I think KG brought up a good point about as far as uh, the fatigue factor because they haven't played this long, and
Right.
in this, so I get that too, and I mean there are going to be moments in, of course, I mean, and, I know Charles said it as well, but
Right.
Chuck said it as well, and okay, and
Right.
I think KG said it as well. I mean, yeah, at this point, I mean, everybody's tired. Just like when we think about like football, when we talk about who's gonna be the most healthiest team going into the playoffs, everybody hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody tired. I mean, and I understand like what KG saying as far as yes, guys don't play until guys either play. I know that he was saying how um, will, guys who didn't make the playoffs, they will play until like July to kind of get their bodies acclimated to playing that long and what have you. But in the type of series like this, yeah, I mean, there's going to be fatigue, but but it is what it is. I think you can probably attribute that to everybody at this point. I mean, that's I think
Right.
I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I mean, it's just the human nature of it. I mean, I mean, guys been playing basketball since October. I mean,
Right.
I don't care if you've been playing, you know, this type of pace for years, you still get tired. I mean, we can say that with LeBron.
So silly.
LeBron was in the
Right.
finals for what 11 years straight,
Right.
dealing with this whole. But he's been in the finals for a decade, and you still seen the fatigue and the wear and tear.
Right.
It's just the human nature aspect of it. So yeah,
Well, stat wise, the Mavs was 30 for field goal was 34 for 81, and the Timberwolves was 39 for 74. Um, 3 point. The Mavs was 14 for 40, and the Timberwolves was 11 for 24. And then points in the paint, the Mavs was 36, and the Timberwolves was 46. So you see how they won the game right there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that's what's weird. Like I don't understand. I get it. Unless it's open, like the 3 point line can either hurt you or
yeah,
it can make things easy for you. But man, if you ain't the Warriors where you're designed to shoot threes like that, man, if you don't set yourself up and get in and get the 2 points and just do it like the Phoenix Suns, pace wise, you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like speed up the pace a little
yeah.
bit, you know?
And I know that's when Chuck was saying on after the game, as far as like he didn't like the fact that Cat was jacking threes, but he was hitting them. So it's like kind of
Yeah.
one of those things where and they were clutch threes, especially considering the fact that's when I thought Dallas had that momentum, and we were really thinking,
Mhm.
oh, they're gonna come back. They were coming
Right.
back, and this is how it normally happens. Where a team, like Dallas would come roaring back, but Karl Anthony Towns was hitting some key threes to kind of at least get them to that point. So it's like, will he have a well? Could that be the same situation that can happen in potentially game 5? I doubt it, but
Right.
it is what it is, and it worked for him that night. And, it may not work for him, you know, Thursday night. It may not work for
Right.
him Saturday, or if or what have you. So,
Right. My dad said the worst thing that ever happened to Carl Anthony Towns is winning that 3 pointer contest.
tell you,
Right. But
hey,
let me ask you a question. How would you feel? Because Luca's not that fast. How would you feel with Carl Anthony Towns sticking Luca? Now be open minded because they
he
both
said
about
if
7 foot.
Luke, so he said Luca guarding Cat or
No, the
Cat
other way
guarding
around.
Luka.
Cat's guarding Luca.
I mean, possibly. I wouldn't do it. I would try it and see. It'd be a try and see approach. Because I still think Luca can still beat him off of stuff. Even and that's the thing. I think people fail to realize like people was killing Rudy for the situation, but I'm like he does that to pretty much anybody in the league,
Everybody.
like
Yeah.
everybody. So it's like so one of those things where I think if I would try it and just see if it because that's one thing with him. I don't want Cat to be exerted because I think
Right.
that situation there where he hit that step back and you can't recover from that, kind of chasing this, that, and the third. So I mean, I would try it and see if
I,
it's successful, and
right.
then maybe like still deviate from it, maybe like third,
Yeah.
So maybe like in the final
Right.
couple of minutes. I mean, I was do it in the beginning, then
Right.
maybe
I got
probably
you.
like the last 5 minutes of the game
Right.
potentially, and to see how that works. Because
Because I thought about the chasing part, and I was like, well, that's the whole thing. This cat is still long. You know what I mean? They both slow.
yeah,
You know. And anyway, I
yeah,
just was thinking outside the box. I was like, man, maybe they should try this because well, people don't understand how in the hell is Luca leading the team in rebounds? He ain't under the basket. How is he leading the team in rebounds? You got
just
that's
I mean,
crazy to me.
and rebound is a mental thing, like I want. So it's kind of one of those things
Right.
where it's just like I mean, he just getting them, and that's the thing. It's all about that the want factor.
He really big. He plays like he humped over. He really bigger than that damn near everybody on the
Yeah,
court. You know what I mean? And that's
yeah,
why I said that. I said, Cat plays like a small forward, and I was like, well, maybe he could stick it because even if he was to let him go past him, he could still block the shot from behind or hit it. You know what I'm saying? Because they both slow. Just thinking outside the box, son. You know what I
he
mean?
can, but the only thing, yeah, with both them being slow is kind of even that's probably more in Luca advantage, in my personal
Right,
opinion. As far as when it comes to the slowness, but I mean, Luca's gonna be Luca. Luca gonna do
right,
his thing, right, regardless. But you
right,
just only hope to contain them, and I think
right,
like I talked about it in the preview,
right.
because he gonna get his, and like some, you. I always say you want somebody else to beat you. You like you can, you always want somebody to beat you outside of Luca because if you have a Luca performance where he's having a triple double, you're like okay, but like if a PJ Washington give you 25, 10 and 10, I can live with that. That's a one off. But Luca, like that happens more frequently, and I'm kind of like okay, how we gonna stop this because he's capable of doing that every single game.
All I know is they gotta stop shooting. They need to shoot, get the 3 points down. Like, I mean, because they all can hit them, but if they
Yeah.
open, they open. But man, don't like even Ant Man. I'll be like, man, go to the hole, be you or do some middies. You shooting too many threes, but he'll knock them. He'll knock them down. It'd be like three dudes on him.
Yeah.
He'll knock them down. And I'm like, that's great and all, but
Yeah.
you got weapons. You got to use them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's but yeah. So, we had the Dallas Mavericks who essentially are on the verge of potentially going to the NBA Finals. We know who they could potentially who they will face if they do advance. It would be the Boston Celtics, where they won on Monday, um, 105 to 102. So essentially, it was a sweep. So this is the Celtics' second appearance in 3 years and their 23rd appearance in the NBA Finals in franchise history. Looking for their 18th title. Um, Jalen Brown was named the Larry Bird Eastern Conference Championship MVP, averaging 29.8 points per game. What's your thoughts on the clean sweep for the Boston Celtics?
I'm upset. No, I'm just kidding. Congratulations on them. Once I looked at the stats, I have a like when we first started this, I said, man, I know everybody said they ain't got Porzingis, but everybody rebounds. They are. I hate to say this, man. They really are all around team. Like they look out for one another. Like they work hard. They play. They play. They role. Like, and man, I'm gonna tell you something. You look at these stats, and the Pacers, they just was young. I think some of this blame can be on Rick Carlisle. He should have protected his players a little bit more. Um, sometimes the last 2 minutes or the last minute, a lot of that has to do with coaching too. You know what I mean? Me being a Cavalier fan and LeBron fan, I understand that. Trust me. But so a lot of those games, like at least let me see, shit, man. Honestly, like three of those games, man, there should have been some timeouts. Like you could dissect those a lot of like mess ups that the coaches should have really helped the young players. You know what I mean? Halliburton's turnovers. But when you look at these stats, man, they almost identical. It is ridiculous, except for one thing is Boston played one, two, three, four, five players. Their starting five all played over 40 minutes, except for Jay Holiday. He played 38. Um, and the Pacers, like I think Turner was like 28, and like the most Pascal was like 30, like 35 or something like that. But they played one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, like eight players, and maybe a couple more. But those eight players was like it was 17. I was just sitting there like, well, damn. You would think they would be they might have like Boston might have been fatigued, but they wasn't. You know what I mean? They just played hard, and with the coach that they got, and the last coach they got, that is how he made them. Remember when what's my man that's at Houston right now?
Ime Udoka.
Email Udoka, that's one thing he did. Like they was losing at the middle of the season, and he pushed them, and they learned how to play hard through fatigue and everything, and they're still playing that way. Like man, Tatum and Brown played 44 minutes. They paid the most. I've been saying that the whole time. I'm like, yo, your star players got to play a lot of minutes, man. Like, what is really going on, you know? But I mean, shout out to them. The problem I have with the Pacers, I mean, Miles Turner got 8 points, and you know what I'm saying. To me, he should be one of the. He actually should be the star on the team. He's been there the longest, and I think he should at least gave him 15 or 20, at least 20 points. You know what I mean? And they probably would have won. But hey, man, I feel like Jaylen Brown done stepped up. Um, they really didn't. The Pacers didn't really have somebody that was extra physical. You know what I mean? Like just like Draymond did to Jaylen Brown when he pulled him down. Like they really didn't have somebody that would go touch those lines of physicality. And I will say this: I feel like, and I want your take on this also. How did you feel about the non-flagrant call? I felt like with T.J. McConnell when he got hit in the face, I felt
Yeah,
like that was a flagrant.
yeah, and that's the thing. It just shows you just the inconsistency of fouls, especially in the
Right.
playoffs. It's just, I
Because
mean, it
like
should have.
it
Yeah,
wasn't on purpose. It looked if you really look at it, he looked him in his face when he did it, you know. But and McConnell was balling, but
yeah,
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if they'd have got those points, they might have won that game because it would have been what 2 shots and ball back.
yeah. Because they was score. Remember, they what was the last six possessions they were scoreless. So yeah, they last six possessions they were scoreless. Yeah, and they lost by three.
And they lost by 3. And because I believe he
Yeah,
would at least made one. I'm just
yeah,
saying, man, like it is the playoffs, and regardless, it ain't like if he did not. I'm saying he didn't do it on purpose. Let's just say that. But the simple fact you hit him in his face, he was in the air. That's a flagrant, B. You know what I mean? That's a flagrant.
yeah, yeah. I think if I'm Indiana, I mean I'm good. Like I mean to the fact that I think you consider the fact you did get swept
Mm-hmm.
by the Celtics, but you got to think to yourself you were without Halliburton and for the part of game two, then obviously missing him in game three and four.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I literally thought the series was over. What was it, Saturday night when they had that double digit lead in the third quarter, and now then the Celtics came back. I figured all of the momentum in a sense where I thought game four was going to be like a blowout, but they stayed focused. They came out to play in game four, and they fell short. Obviously, like as I mentioned earlier, just the simple fact of them, being scoreless in their final six possessions. That's more, I think, of credit to the Celtics defense and what they did in those final six possessions. And I think at that time, I want to say they were, I think I forgot the Pacers were up at, I think like two or three. I forgot what was, they were up then, but then those final six possessions when it was scoreless and ended up losing by three. But I'm like, if I'm them, uh, you know, I would be really encouraged to what's going to happen next year. I know you got a few, free agency. I know you got, I think Pascal's up, Obi's up. You and then you bring Benedict Mathurin to be coming back next year. So it's kind of one of those where I'm like, this was a really unexpected run for the Indiana Pacers. I mean, I know, you know, them even making to the play-in championship. I know people really didn't necessarily take it serious, but they played some meaningful basketball in November, December to kind of get to this point. And also with the acquisition of Pascal. So I mean, I would be encouraged with them, and then from the Celtics perspective, um, yeah, this is kind of what we expected. I knew for me, I kind of expected this was, them making it back to the finals. I mean, obviously, when you win 64 wins, that is, essentially the goal. And now the next goal is to win a championship. And now it's just one of those where I know a lot of people will discredit this Boston Celtics run because obviously, first round without Jimmy Butler, round two, Donovan Mitchell was out, game 3 and 4, I think, in those matchups. But then you had Halliburton, even though he wasn't that leading scorer, but you lose a guy like a Halliburton, and in games, part of game 2, game 3, and game 4. So, yeah. So now the pressure's on. It's now at this point. Hey, this is where we look at this Boston Celtics team now and say, hey, now whoever you play, I mean, we would assume, I guess when we come back next week, I'm assuming they'll be playing the Dallas Mavericks or potentially the Minnesota Timberwolves. But regardless, and we're here, Wednesday, May the 29th, 2024, both, either Boston or Minnesota at this moment, as we talking about it tonight, are relatively healthy, for the exception of maybe Derek Lively II, which I think he'll be back potentially, with that next sprain potentially. So they'll be coming to that matchup healthy, and you don't expect, we don't envision, hopefully, one of the stars to be out for either Dallas or Minnesota in that series. So this, so I know a lot of people going to look at the East Conference run and kind of put a their own asterisk behind it. But that's why you play the games. I mean, the same thing. You can say the same thing about Porzingis. I think even though, despite them playing well without him, but just imagine if they have a Porzingis, which they're still thinking that he'll be available for game 1. I guess 2. I think I forgot, it was one of the guys on NBA.com. I forgot what article I read. They're pretty much at this point banking on him being available for game 1 of the NBA Finals, which is going to be next Thursday. So,
talking about Porzingis?
Yeah. Huh. So, we shall see. I know, people will talk about their opponents and their injury woes, but then we also got to think about Boston without Porzingis as well. So it's kind of one of those bad. I think, especially if he has a good NBA Finals, that could kind of be something where we can kind of negate kind of people's thought process of their so-called easy road to the NBA Finals. But we shall see, though.
So, how do you think the Bucks is feeling right now about that trade?
I mean, but we kind of, I mean, that's I didn't understand that in the first place. Like, I mean, and I understand, like, hey, they sent him to Portland, and then Portland did the best deal possible, which is just like they sent him to Boston. Yeah, I mean, but that's what happens. I mean, that's what happens. I mean, you sent him to Portland. We knew he wasn't gonna be in Portland, so it's like, I mean, you kind of set yourself up for that.
This dude,
and
I think 2 games he stole the ball, bro. Like do you understand? Like, honestly, people looking at Jaylen Brown, but on the low, Holiday has been the one, like, defensively, and then knocking down free throws and the shots at the end of the game.
Yeah, and that's and that's gonna be the difference. I mean, regardless, I think if they, and because we talked about that, like, as far as when it came to, well, we envisioned Halliburton was gonna play the whole entire series. We looked at him and Derek White as guys defensively that's gonna be the difference. And I think you look at, even regardless of who they will face, either Minnesota or Dallas, the same rules apply. I mean, especially if you're thinking about, if you play Dallas, you're gonna see a nice heavy dose of Drew Holiday on Kyrie. So so it's kind of one
Right.
of the things, and then and then maybe he'll maybe have some responsibility with Ant-Man potentially if Minnesota advances. So it's kind of one of those where he's that glue guy, and that's like I mean I understood the fact that hey well, I don't even really understand. I never understood that either, in a sense where because he was the reason why they won the championship 3 years ago, and he
Just
was
what I'm
that
saying.
glue guy, and he wanted to be there. And I think that's the thing
And
that sucks
wanted to
about
be
it
there.
all. Where yeah, and that's the thing where it's just like, but it shows you well, that's what. And now you look at Milwaukee window potentially closing because now you look at it from a standpoint are they gonna still keep Doc? And if they still keep Doc, are they gonna still struggle like they did? Because at least when we looked at the Eastern Conference, there's somewhat of a pecking order, and we was envisioning that the minutes that Milwaukee was going to be at least in the top four discussion, which they probably still can make a case for it, but it's a whole lot different where you didn't replace him with someone on that defensive end. I mean, you got a guy like a Dame who, yes, he's scoring all right, but a liability on defense. And especially when you have yeah, I don't know. It's just they all in shambles, and that's what and that's why their defense was horrible this year. That's why I think before Doc took over, they were like one of the worst. They were like 21st, 22nd in like total defense. So it's like because you lose your anchor, it's like you lose,
Right.
probably one of your
Defense
best
anchor, right.
perimeter defenders.
Right. I
Yeah,
think I got the strangest feeling Giannis is leaving, V. I think he's doing I think okay, you know how you be somewhere and you really don't want to be there, so they give you everything you want. And I think that's what Giannis is with the Bucks, where they give him everything he wants. Like he know damn well his brother shouldn't be playing there if he's trying to win a championship.
LeBron James. What did you say?
That's not funny, man. Go ahead with that, man.
I
But
just had a little something. My bad.
no, you didn't. No,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't. No, you
No, I had to
didn't.
clear my throat.
Even Michael Jordan wanted to keep Charles Oakley.
But see what ended up happening with that?
Right. So I'm just sitting here like, I mean, okay, let's say this. I see you said LeBron. LeBron been in there 20 years. Giannis is still there. Giannis only got one championship. Before that, it was all these weird
Yeah.
things that was happening. You know what I mean? With Embiid, all this, strange stuff that was happening. He got his 2 MVPs. So it's like, okay, I think he's gonna end up leaving. I was watching that Starry commercial and I was like, man, I wonder if he about to leave. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like, I'm sorry, I'm with Starry now. You know what I mean? Because I just think that he most likely probably gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, and who's to say? Because I know, as far as and what they're gonna do. Like, I mean, I guess
Right.
everything's all pointing that Doc is still going to be the head coach. I mean, I guess at this point, I mean, you would assume if they were going to make a coaching change,
Right.
um, I mean, you've been out the playoffs for what almost
Right.
a little over a month. So
And I'm gonna tell
yeah,
you something. There was games when Giannis was hurt and he didn't play. Dame and Middleton played very well together, and that team played very well together without Giannis. Because the issue is Dame and Giannis don't really know. They haven't really figured out a way how they could play together. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But when he was with
and plus they
Holiday, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, but like you said, because it's the chemistry. I mean, this thing about they
Yeah.
had to develop it. I mean, it's something that you know, and then especially both of them kind of have missed time in the lineup
Right.
inconsistently. So it's kind of
Right.
they really haven't
Right.
played a continuous stretch.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
Giannis is up and down. He's not left and right, and he doesn't really have a jump shot. You know what I mean? He doesn't really shoot free throws well. So when you got Middleton and Dame actually playing like a pick and roll or something like that, it's very easy because they both can shoot. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
so it works out a little bit better. But what's probably gonna happen, Middleton's probably gonna end up going to the to the 76ers, and they're gonna end up getting Tobias Harris. You know, he does well with Doc.
Yeah, they need. Like I said, they need to hire Darvin Ham. They need Darvin Ham, but you know
Me too.
they need Darvin Ham. I think he's the only one that can save this current Buck squad from imploding to a point where I think you're starting to see kind of like the slippery slope and the snowball effect of everything that's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. So, but like I said earlier, I think they're gonna stay with Doc because I mean this would have been a perfect opportunity at this point, especially now. I think that the only coaching vacancy is the Lakers. So I think because I know the Wizards just resigned their head coach, their interim coach is now their head coach, and then Charlotte got the guy from Boston, the assistant from Boston. So yeah, I mean this would have been a perfect opportunity, but who's to say, but it is what it is. So let's. Mhm.
Is Darvin Ham? Did he nobody picked him up, or did he want to coach again, or?
I mean he's nowhere. He's nowhere.
Right.
I mean I don't think. I know they were saying I don't think is he. No, he's not with. They was thinking he might have been an assistant. He might be an assistant somewhere. I know. I forgot.
Right. That's what I mean.
They think he might follow the guy Lee from Boston to Charlotte potentially.
Oh, okay.
I think because they were together in Atlanta with Budenholzer. So I don't know. I think he might. I think he is. Come to think about it, I think he did take a position. If my memory serves correct, I really think he did. Let me check because I think I part of me think he did. I don't know, but he should. But I still think if he was, let's see, I think he still. Let's see, nah. See, he's still what's shit. Yeah, so he didn't take that job. I don't think. Yeah, I think there was rumblings potentially that he was gonna potentially join the coach in Charlotte, but I don't think that's for that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about a very interesting topic in the world of college athletics, where it was announced earlier last week. Matter of fact, right after we did the show last week, I think it happened last Thursday, where college teams are now allowed to pay athletes. What we're going to do, I'm going to show a brief clip, and this is from ABC Washington, ABC 7 in New York. So this is fair use, fair use, fair use. We'll be playing that clip momentarily. Let's see, we got here. This is it. See if it comes up. We playing that should be coming up shortly. Did it help? Okay, so it like I thought it was gonna happen. It still worked out. All right, and we'll clip is now here. Before we do that, fair use, fair use. Thought it was going to load up, but we. Right, so that one did not go through, but I'm going to read an excerpt from. Oh, there we go. Hold on for a sec. All right, now we got it back. Got it going. All right. All right. All right. Fair use. So we'll play the video right now.
In the history of college sports. Tonight, a deal moving forward that will let schools directly pay student athletes. This is all part of a settlement which the NCAA and its 5 power conferences will pay $2.7 billion in damages to current and former athletes. Sources telling ESPN tonight that this also includes a revenue sharing plan, which will allow each school to share roughly $20 million a year with its athletes.
All right. And let's get that going. All right. So that was the breaking news story last week, which is essentially ushering a what people will deem essentially an historic moment for college sports, where essentially it's to end its end of the century old tradition of amateurism in college sports by allowing athletes to receive pay directly from colleges and universities they play for. So, what's your thoughts on the news of this new college landscape where players will be getting paid by the school? What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's great. It's just interesting to hear about, paying the past players in damages. I didn't hear that part earlier. I did hear that they were doing something like that. So I'm like, okay, did something happen? You know what I mean? Was it some foul play or something like that? Or it can look like it's foul play where they're like, okay, let's just go ahead and do this and that. So, you know, basically so it won't be like too much investigation where something may look funny or things of that nature. What is it? The revenue? What they say? A revenue plan?
Revenue sharing, yeah, revenue sharing.
Revenue sharing plan. That was interesting too. So it's just gonna be quite interested thing to see, and I'm hoping that the players and all them people get the right voices. Seem like they're already doing well. Get the right voices in tax so they can get a union and things of that nature.
Yeah, basically how like this happened because obviously there was a case. What was it? House versus NCAA. So basically, this is pretty much one of the things where they settled. So basically, that was kind of part of the deal of that settlement because essentially, it's kind of a way to kind of save the NCAA because obviously they get sued all the time, especially case I know we talked about like when Ed O'Bannon was literally the one who initially spearheaded the NIL in a sense. From that standpoint, kind of how that all kind of was created. And this is another one where I think it goes back from I think like 10 years up until 2021 when they initiated the NIL. So yes, and I like the fact, especially like former players, they'll get the settlement. Just curious how out of that 2.7 billion, how much they would get. I'm not sure what was the number of athletes that would be compensated. I know it's in maybe in the thousands. So it's going to be kind of interesting of how they would divvy up that pay in a sense. I think this is a step in the right direction. I do like the fact of the revenue share, and from that standpoint alone, I do like the fact that from what could potentially happen with this is you have transparency across the board. You hope transparency across the board in the sense where, hey, I know how much Alabama's paying their quarterback. I know how much Tennessee, and vice versa, this and the third. So I do kind of like that. The 20 million, and that's going to be dispersed amongst like the revenue-driven sports. I mean, so you'll have like primarily like the football team, in some case the basketball team on the school. So it's going to be kind of interesting of how they're going to do that $20 million. I'm really curious how they'll be able to pay guys off that $20 million revenue potentially. I think, like you said, they need like a union. I think this kind of one of things where it provides a structure, but I think even with the structure, it needs leadership. It needs situations of policies in place where you have somebody who can deal with the antitrust laws in a sense where because we know the NCAA gets sued all day, every day, and 2 times on Sundays.
Right.
They need somebody in that situation that could be that buffer. I know, and in this case, sound like Congress in a sense might need to be involved because you need a few things, especially when it comes to state to state kind of uniformity when it comes to these to the issues. So every state need to be on this path when it comes to the conversation of these athletes. So you won't have a situation where, okay, Virginia is different than in the state of Alabama or in California or what have you. So it's kind of, I look at that. And then I think one thing, I, I think this could be kind of one of those things where it's going to be, they're going to have a union. They're going to have a union because I think it's going to get to a point where I see that $20 million could potentially be a problem down the road, where the revenue share and how that's all going to affect everything when it comes to like traveling, lodging, all the type of stuff that encompass, as far as when you have a football game, obviously traveling, you know, it's going to cost you millions of dollars just to for the lodging aspect, the logistics behind everything. So how will that play in a factor of said revenue? So it's kind of one of those things where it's going to be some loopholes that I think the NCAA could potentially get away with in a sense, and I think the athletes need to have a union similar to like the players union in the NFL, where not trying to say I want them to get more, but kind of see how that money is going to be divvied up, and will that $20 million cut out of maybe of our food budget, like as far as hey, because most of these schools now, these major schools, they have these state of the art facilities, they have these world renowned chefs, nutritionists. Will that money cut into that $20 million pie that is that revenue share? So it's kind of will they know? They need to know kind of the transparency behind that revenue share. I think that's one thing too. And then then you got to handle the tax aspect. So it's kind of one of those where it's like, yeah, you're gonna get this money, but you're gonna be taxed on it as well. So I definitely think they need to have. I like the plan, but I think in my perfect world, I wish there were like leadership already in place for these for this things to happen. And I know that's not going to always be the case. And I know, if this is kind of one of those things, I understand that this was a settlement. This is something kind of like, hey, something that they had to settle. It's not like something that they could just sit on and create structure and discipline for said settlement. It just, this kind of one where they had, in essence, they had to cave in to it because obviously, the stakes would have been higher and higher to a point where NCAA could have been just, could have been potentially out of business as the settlement and everything, gets larger and larger. So I like it, but some plans got to be in place for sure.
Yeah, man. Like it's great that they made the decisions, and but still gotta protect yourself.
Yeah, and they need a union. Yep, because at
Right.
this point, it's all fine and dandy, but you need to know what you're getting yourself into, and
Especially since
you
you
need somebody on the end.
right. Especially when you know you're getting paid. You gotta have somebody's, union or something like this that's been to speak up for you. Like I was watching I think it's something pertaining that we had to do, and there was one player they was having a hard time with. They recruited him, and then I think he was getting hurt, and then he was like something was wrong with um his mental illness, and I think because he came in like he was because he's always been a star player, but I think he didn't do that well, and then he was like out, the next year I wasn't coming in because they benched him, and then the coach was like he wanted to talk to him. I cannot remember where I seen this at. The coach was like saying he wanted to speak to him, and he was like, I'm not ready for that yet. I talked to my therapist, and I'm not ready to talk to you yet. And then,
Oh,
you remember?
that was the Lane Kiffin situation at Ole
Yeah,
Miss.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
the way I'm thinking about it, they're paying him. You know what I mean? I'm just giving a scenario because, like, jobs that have unions, stuff like that happens,
Yeah.
and that union is there to necessarily protect him. Because they're like, we're paying you. You need to do what I tell you, and that's the thing you're gonna have to pay attention to too. They're going to say, well, I'm paying you. You need to do this,
Yep.
and you're still dealing with young adults.
Because they are employees,
Right.
essentially. At this point, I mean, when this new, when this new agreement happens, they're gonna
Right.
be so they have to give themselves protections from
Right.
that, and then because and then what does that really encompass? Like, okay, like, do you still get access to certain things despite you getting paid? Like, it's a lot. It's a lot to kind of unpack with that. And then also when it comes to they need that on the player side. Then I still think they need, as like I said, we talked about it all ad nauseum. They need like a commissioner. They need a commissioner
Right.
that can oversees all the commissioners in all these conferences. So you got the commissioners up there, and then they need to have a boss under this window, and then maybe that person will be the one that goes to Congress and have this legislation as far as the antitrust rules. Somebody who, someone I want to say, I don't necessarily think this person needs to be in government, but at least know the inner workings of government and can represent college football. When it comes in, like when they have to go on Capitol Hill and these things are being, legislated, and then and to prevent from further lawsuits and litigations to a point now, because like I said, the NCAA gets sued every day, essentially.
Right.
So so it's a step in the right direction. I put it that way. It's a step in the right direction, but there's still a lot of things that need to be done behind the scenes to make this 100% right and make it and make it what it should, what we all envisioned it should be. Because even with the revenue share, and one can make the argument where it's just I think you can do up to like $25 million at this point, and then we all know as everything increases, that number will always increase. But as far as will that be the right amount, for that, and then as far as in how they will distribute all this. So that's one thing too. I think once and we're in the infant stages of it, but there's still some stuff that needs to be ironed out before this becomes, I think, in my personal opinion, before it becomes legitimate.
Right.
But yeah. Yep, and protections for, like you said, protections for like mental illness, injury, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's so much stuff that you can, that can give cap, and it can, mess it up.
It's gonna be a trip to transition because I'm sure all the guys, the people that's in these universities, and how they really speak and think in their perception of a student athlete is gonna have to change. you know, you know, and they're probably not probably not going to like that,
I mean, and
Because think
I'm
about it.
fine with because yeah.
Think about it. Me working, where I work at. That's part of the issue is kind of like the union because you can easily say file grievance against something and then the union kind of scares away the other person, the other whatever is going on that's on that side to be like, okay, you know what, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because they file grievance against you. So you're not even going to be able to, unless they do something really, really, really bad, be able to take that, to be able to say, I stand my ground on this. That's, you know what I mean? You'd rather just let it go. So, you know what? You go over there and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a trip. You understand what I'm saying? Like a lot of issues that I go with at my job is because they know they got their union backing them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like you say the same thing, and because you especially considering the fact the amount of guys that are going to be in this union, it's going to be almost eerily similar to the NFL, where when it came to like the lockout, how they told guys, hey, we got we're gonna have a new CBA coming up, save your money. We're gonna have to fight, we have to save, but
Right.
you're gonna have guys that's gonna cross that picket line because they didn't heed the advice 3 years ago, where you got a guy who's making $200,000, he living paycheck to paycheck. He's not gonna go for what's the best interest in the collective. He's gonna just simply worry about, hey, I'm missing out money. Like I'm missing out money potentially for myself, my family,
Right.
versus potentially the greater good. Like I know one of the issues back then was like health insurance, as far as when you get older. So
Right.
when you're 20, 21, 20, we know we thank God we've at a point now where at a point now we understand the importance of, said saving, creating something where you can get health care at a later age in your life when you need it the most. So
Right.
versus, when you're 21, you're not thinking about when you're like 40, 50 years old, when
Right.
your body has broken down to a point,
Right.
you don't think, well, let's create something where former players, if they're, like they have like a pension now, they have a pension, and also with the health insurance thing, you're not gonna think about it, and so, and that's thing, and that might be something that might happen in with college football potentially, especially you think only a few percent are going to make it, to the NFL, and you still got guys who are playing high professional like football, especially now the pay for play situation in college, where you might have a thing where you can get insurance when you're 50
Right.
years old,
Right.
and so yeah, so they got a lot to iron out, but
Yeah,
like
it's
I
a
said, this
lot.
is the first step. Yeah,
Like
it's a
the
lot.
more we
But
talk about
it's
it,
the first step.
like because and one way we talk, I'm sitting here like thinking about somebody that go to the gym and he filed grievance because he couldn't use the gym as just. I mean, I'm being petty and not trying to be negative, but I'm saying those type of things can happen. You know what I mean? With that
Yeah.
union being there, and then it's gonna be interested in how they're gonna pay. Is it going to be like, okay, if I get 1,000 yards, I get a bonus? Like, I'm just interested to see how they're going to line all those certain things up and how they're going to pay them.
Yeah, and then just demand of it, and I think you're gonna look at it from, so and you're gonna have some strife, because I think if you look at, and I'm just giving an example, like if you're, a quarterback, and you know, you have to divvy up all this money amongst potentially 70, 80 players. Because obviously, I don't know if you got, if you're, will they give money to guys who are red shirting or who on the program, this and third.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those where they're in a very interesting, and then I know people think 20 million is a lot, but not when you disperse it over,
Right.
Potentially 90, because you probably have about 80 something guys on scholarship, potentially 80, 90, give or take. And then if that trends over to basketball, where you probably have about 15, 16 guys potentially. So you might be divvying up that money to 100 guys, maybe less than 100, but right in that 80, 90 mark potentially. So yeah, it has its problems. But I mean, I think they're gonna look at like how which we kind of did it how we did prior to, well, hey, let's bring him into a room. He just won the poker game.
Right.
So
So it's gonna
so
be
and that
cool.
happens. That happens.
Right.
That happens.
Right.
Guys go into a room. Yeah, he just won this poker tournament, slipping about 90,000.
Right.
put put
That
put
was
the
just.
90,000 on the dresser.
Right. I'm just saying, man, it's gonna be really really interesting because it's going to be somebody who know how to play the game and know the ins and out. You know what I mean? There's going to be some people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just gonna be interesting. Bottom line is they deserve it. They should get a piece of the pie because a lot of the. You know what's funny? I was just thinking. You was talking about taxes. You know how many? Well, Florida football is back on top. No property tax. Florida
Yeah.
sports back
Yeah.
on top. I go to Florida, man. I got to pay no
Yeah.
tax.
Right.
Shoot,
And you go to California, they tax
expensive.
they tax the mess out of you. Nah, I'm good.
Right. I'm
You,
straight.
you think you'll be living like Caleb Williams in that penthouse?
Right.
Nah,
Not gonna happen.
nah, not in this model.
Right.
Unless you be peddling Dr. Pepper.
And the way
You
Virginia
ain't getting
going.
that penthouse. Yeah, you know. But I'm saying, yeah, you want to live like Caleb Williams. This may not be the best for you. But we're gonna see though. It's gonna definitely
Right.
be a very interesting as all this come to play.
Right.
We gonna see a lot is happening in the college football landscape, and this is gonna be fun to watch. So
Right.
we gotta definitely talk about some sad news in the world of sports, not just in the world of basketball. Um, we lost living legend. We lost Bill Walton on Monday. Died at the age of 71 after a battle with cancer. Some of his accolades. Pardon me. He was a two-time NCAA tournament most outstanding player, two-time champ, obviously with UCLA Bruins, three-time College Player of the Year. He's a three-time All-American. Two-time NBA champion, obviously winning with the Portland Trail Blazers in 1977, and then with the Boston
Mm-hmm.
Celtics in 1986. So he was the league MVP in 1978, the Sixth Man of the Year in 1986, and he was a member of the NBA 50th and 75th anniversary team, obviously. Um, Broadcast career at NBC and also at ESPN. Your thoughts on Bill Walton?
Man, he always, for a broadcaster, to me, he was never negative, and he didn't really beat up players. He was always came off very seemed like a really nice guy. You know what I mean? Like seriously, he seemed like somebody you could sit down and have a talk, have a conversation with. He seemed not closed minded. He seemed like he looked like he would be comfortable in any circumstances that he was in. So then when this happened, I go back and I didn't realize he was such a um, ad, activist. Activist. I'm sorry, activist. I seen something today. He said I was raised by my parents and coaches to question authority and to think for myself and have an opinion. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
everybody, I could tell everybody that spoke on him, um, like Gil. Gil played with his son. I mean, with Bill Walton's son, and he said, "Man, say these words to him, like, man, everything gonna be okay. You're gonna do well." And he said, "Well, I'm gonna shoot 50 times or something like that." He said, "Cool, that's exactly what you need," or something like that. He was never negative. You know what I mean? I saw some other podcast guys said that they looked up to him. Like Larry Bird was that was his idol. You know what I mean? They said he was always trying to. He would always try to. He was never negative, even when he was going through all the pains he went through. He You go out and have conversation with him. He was always trying to take the check. He was just a positive person, except for It was something that and then he used his celebrity, even and when he was with UCLA, he used his celebrity against what he thought was wrong, and he said even his coach, um, it bothered him. John Wooden, it bothered him because he wanted, but they both wanted to win, so that's how they was able to come together. But man, when you think of Kyle, when you think of that, he's one of those names that you got to say, reading all his accolades, like he was one of those guys that kept the NBA and just basketball moving forward. You know, it's real sad, man. He was only 71, and he seemed like one of those guys that you kind of wanted to be around till he was 100 and something. You know, I could tell a lot of the guys that was talking today, a lot of the old broadcasters, and a lot of those guys, it hit them hard. You know what I mean? It hit them hard. But sending love and strength to his family.
Yeah, yeah, and it's they kind of echo the sentiments of Michael Smith from brother to brother. Him
Mhm.
He does a show with Michael Hawley, and it's almost similar. He has almost a similar impact, almost like with John Madden. And I know we talked about
Yeah,
John Madden
yeah,
passing almost 3 years
yeah.
ago, and just to echo that sentiment, where you remember him, depending on how old you are, you remember him
Yeah.
from something. More
Right.
so when we talk about like the Bill Walton. I mean, the parallel between Bill Walton and John Madden. Obviously, with me, obviously I didn't get to see him play.
Right.
Obviously, I was too young to see him play, but I was always a historian of the game
Right.
and watch old clips stuff like that even back then. So the fact that you look at he's we think about Grant Hills, we think about Trace McGrady, we think about Penny Hardaway as like the what if type of factor. He was the ultimate what if. He was a guy that being drafted by Portland, the team at the time was just fairly new. They didn't have a winning season until he got there, and then essentially, wins the championship in 1977, follows it up by an MVP the following year, and then gets injured.
Hmm.
And now you think to yourself, what if he would have stayed healthy? Would he would have been in that mix between the Lakers, Celtics? Could he have been that stopgap in the sense between that rivalry in the sense? And we talk about teams of the '80s. He could have been. You look at that as a factor that he could have had an impact on the trajectory of the NBA in the '80s potentially. But what I remember him very fondly was NBC. Obviously, him being paired up with his former teammate, the late Snapper Jones, which they were a great duo. Steve Snapper Jones, they were such a great duo at NBC. That was the first time I really got the introduction to Bill Walton and his vast basketball knowledge, and obviously it translated on to ESPN, especially if you watch Pac-12 at the dark, especially from on the basketball end. I know we really talk about Pac-12 at the dark on the football sense, but on the basketball sense, he was just one of those ones where I think, like you said, he was full of life, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you watch the games, it's kind of like you had a chuckle. And it's like kind of one of the things where he brought his own flair to it. And you look at, especially for a guy like a Bill Walton, who became this, very, boisterous guy that was great with his words. And to think he would coming up, he had a speech impediment. He stuttered.
Man.
And for him to even overcome something like that, I think, you look at those type of things, and that's really inspiring. When you sit down and you think about it, if you listen to Bill Walton, would you have ever thought that he stuttered?
Right.
It just, as far as how great he is with words. And like you said, he was a guy that was full of life, full of joy. Like you said, he was someone that I wouldn't say no one lives forever, but a guy that with that type of unbridled joy, you would have thought, God, that would last for 80, 90, maybe 100 years in a sense. So it's
Right.
kind of one of the things, like I said, it's really sad, and like, the whole NBA community as well. And I think, and, and Ernie Johnson, I think out of all of them, because he sent, because when Ernie Johnson's mother passed away, Bill Walton reached out to him and essentially what Bill Walton said to him in his grieving moments. He essentially sent that to the Walton family, including Luke and everybody and all of them. And I just thought that was really poignant. And like you said, everybody, this was kind of it was an impact. And I think that's one thing. And we always, we've been on the show, we talked about, some, athletes' deaths and what have you. Some of the things where I always look at these type of situations and you look at just the impact. And everybody has said positive, great words and just great personal stories of Bill Walton. He's kind of one of those guys where, if you ever think about like, dang, like that's somebody I wish I would have met. Like in that kind of sense. Like, sometimes you have that when, these guys have great stories. And I remember even before Bill Walton passed, and Richard Jefferson had a funny story about him, when he was at the house. Obviously, Richard Jefferson and Luke went to Arizona together. So they, and then, even like Stephen Curry was talking about, when, Bill was around, how much fun he was around. Obviously, when Luke was at the time the assistant coach with the Warriors. So it's like, yeah, he's definitely a prominent. We lost a major one this year. This one. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, man. His spirit and his spirit and them tie-dye shirts will always live on. So yeah, definitely. Right. Like you said, send me condolences to the Walton family. For sure.
Man, 71.
Yeah, I know, right? 71. Yep. Yeah. So we're gonna put a bow on tonight's Couch Coach Live. We'll give the game ball this week and then our final thoughts. So who gets this week's game ball?
Man, I got two guys. One goes to our Scorpio brothering. It's a legendary comedian they don't talk much about. It goes by the name of Sinbad. He did a couple weeks ago at Netflix as a joke. They did a show for him and he was able to speak. And it's been a couple of years because he had a stroke. It was good to see him out there. He cracked a little bit of jokes. Had his family and friends there. So it was just, I wanted to give him that. I wanted to give it to him a couple weeks ago, but I definitely was able to give him that. But I'm going to give the game ball to the Major League Baseball and definitely Josh Gibson. As of right now, Major League has added to their stats the Negro Leagues. And after 90 years or almost a century, Ty Cobbs has been the batting average leader. And as of right now, Josh Gibson is number one. I think that's great. I want to give it so much more. You can go to the site now and they have all the great Negro League players in there. And Josh Gibson is number one on a couple of them, but that's one of the main ones I see. Major League said that as of right now, Negro Leagues and Negro League stats are now major. So you know what I'm saying? Like, shout out to them. Give them the game ball, man. They deserve it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Man, I gotta go. So today is May 29th, 2024. It is the birthday of one of the most lethal scorers in NBA history. My class of 2002 brethren, my 1984 brethren, Carmelo Anthony. His milestone birthday, 40th birthday. So big shout out to Carmelo Anthony. Obviously, let's roll down a list of his accomplishments. Championship at Syracuse, 2003 MOP, member of the NBA 75th anniversary team. He's a top 10 scorer in NBA history, and he has 3 gold medals to boot. So definitely huge shout out to my class 2002 and 1984 brother Carmelo Anthony on your 40th birthday. So huge shout out to my guy Melo.
Happy birthday,
wish I would have had
Melo.
a headband. I won't even thinking I should have got a headband for the occasion. But my headbands are now They're probably somewhere in storage collecting dust.
Yeah, Coach
If it
done
ain't
got mature on us,
warped
y'all.
by now, it's collecting dust.
And he's a
Yeah, but show, yeah, those are the days, man. Who's rocking the headbands and you know and all that. But yeah, man, yeah.
man.
So
The world is tripped,
final
man.
thought. Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
final thoughts before you head out. Your final thoughts, and then also social media plug. What you got going on?
Final thoughts of what I was about to say. So I thought I'd just do a final thought. It's just a trip, man, that in like a week span or 2 week span, you got college are willing or have settled to pay players and back players. Um, and then you have Major League Baseball taking in, taking in Negro League stats. You know what I mean? And now by doing so, of course, just people gonna be negative. But now people get to know some of those special players, and they get to get a little more history because they used to play against one another, and those Negro leagues used to beat them. You know what I mean? And so back then, it wasn't a lot of it wasn't about money. It was more or less, I know I'm better than them. You know what I mean? So it's just great to see that. I think today they were talking more. A lot of people was happy because they want people to know who Josh Gibson is, and he died early, and they, you know what I mean. So they want him to really get some type of praise. But that's my final thoughts, man. That's just great to know. A lot of stuff is starting to be fixed. That little by little. But anyway, my social media is Deshaun Morgan, Facebook, and DT Morgan 78 Instagram.
Yeah. Once again, another great show. So yeah, man. So definitely, podcast wise, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Check us out, Couch Coach Live. Also, you can check out the podcast on the website, couchcoachlive.com. Hit that podcast tab, and it has all the podcasts there as well. And also, check out my latest article on couchcoachlive.com where I talked about the top 5 Washington Commanders games to watch this season. So definitely head over to couchcoachlive.com. Also, follow us social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Couch Coach Live, and also subscribe to the YouTube page as well. So, yeah, man, this wraps up this week on Couch Coach Live on a Carmelo Anthony edition of a Carmelo Day edition of Couch Coach Live, and we'll catch you guys next week. And we're out.